Welcome to News Laundry. I'm Alpana Kishore, and my guest today is a celebrated songwriter, Prasoon Joshi, and recently scriptwriter as well.
Yeah.
Your first script is...
First full script, yeah.
First
I've
full
done dialogue screenplays earlier, like Rang De Basanti and all. But this is like story, screenplay, dialogues, everything, and the songs as well. So yes, the full writing, sort of full throttle writing.
And was it a stretch to jump from one to the other, or not really?
No, I think I've always been a writer. I always written stories, just that not in this fashion, and especially because it was a biopic. It required to spend a lot of time with Milkha Singh ji. So made a lot of trips to Chandigarh.
Okay.
And spent time with him. And did a lot of discussion with me and Rakesh Mehra, who's directing the film. And both of us go a long way back, so it was easy. But in that sense, yes, a lot of hard work in terms of understanding, because there was a lot of documentation about what he had done in life, but when you're writing a story about someone, you need to know him as a human being. So to know him as a human being took a lot of time. What his relationships were, it's not just one dimension of him as a sports person. As a person, what he is all about. So when you're writing a narrative, you require all that raw material.
So it obviously took you a much longer time than it takes for you to write a song.
Yes, of course. Songs are a different sort of ball game. You get into the groove, and in a couple of days it's over, and then you get into another song. But here it's one narrative and one sort of journey all together.
Okay, let me ask you a question about the kind of ethos you bring into your songs. You've mentioned in your book, which is called Sunshine Lanes, A Poetic Journey, which is sort of a compilation of all your...
not all,
but
some of
most of your songs, especially the
30,
really
40,
iconic
40,
ones.
45 songs, yeah, I could not fit in more, but I wish I could have. But yes, some of them which I felt should be read. The primary reason to have this book is that I feel my songs are like poems, and the primary reason for me to write songs was that I got published much earlier in life. My poetry came out, and I realized that people don't actually read poetry that much.
That's true, yes.
And that's declining. And
well, songs are our poetry.
But songs have some. They're consuming poetry in the form of song, I feel. So I felt that this would be a good sort of medium or platform for me to be able to write. And see, there is a desire in every writer after it's written that it should be shared with people, and it should have an impact. It should connect. That's another journey, So, and that's very important that people sort of respond to it, and then only the journey is complete, the circle is complete. So I think the reason for me is to basically let people read it, and when you read it and you realize that there was poetry. Also, the recent trend of songs is that people don't focus, they only focus on the mukra, and I think antara and mukra are two parts. The stanzas are called antaras. The mukra is the first two lines. And often people say, okay, what is the mukra? Tell me. Antara, of course, we'll do it, And antara is a poor cousin. But for me, it's like one song is a one thought process. So I start and I finish it, and it's one thought which I'm sharing. So everything for me is important.
Is important.
So in the book form, when you read it, you realize that, what was the thought process. You might have missed it.
Right.
Also, people mispronounce when I've seen my song being performed by youngsters in functions, in college functions. They mispronounce words, and that also is sort of, as a writer, it sort of hurts.
But do you think that the kind of language you use, which is kind of it's a poetic language, it has some words that are sort of rural. Some may be taken from some kind of dialect, and basically they're consumed in an urban context. So in cities, they become iconic, they become popular. So do you think that is something that is definitive about your poetry, that you bring in these words that might be difficult, but you introduce them into the lexicon?
It's a very good observation, I would say, and primarily because I'm not a student of Hindi, Urdu, or any poetry in that sense. I was a science student, and I did my business management. And then I joined advertising. And I have various influences. I've been writing since my childhood because Hindi was the mother tongue. At home we spoke Hindi. And so
I read in fact that one of your lines in the Rang De Basanti songs, you use H2SO4.
Now H2SO4 for example. I mean, H2SO4 is...
just tell us which song and where it comes from.
Which is a very famous song called Masti Ki Pathshala. And in that I wrote Nata Ye Sannata Hai, Dekho Lambu Shor Hai, Har Dil Mein Budbud Karta Hai, H2SO4 Hai. So I remember somebody in one of the student group was doing a Q&A with me, and somebody asked that you know, you did physics and then you did, you know, business management, and then you started writing, you know, for films and advertising, you know. So how does it, like, this isn't it a mismatch, you know, this? I said nothing is a waste. If I wasn't a student of science, probably I wouldn't have written word H2SO4. I would have written Tezab, because I was saying that we've got acid in us, we've got fire in us. And since I was writing a song in the college school context, I felt using H2SO4 would be the apt sort of use. Probably that would not occur to a person who is not familiar with those terms. So I think nothing goes waste, and my language is a confluence of a lot of influences I had in my life.
Right.
Whether it is, you know, to college, school, or traveling, or dialects where I lived. I was born and brought up in Uttarakhand, for example. The language, the Pahadi language, for example, when I wrote in Tare Zami Par, Tu Dhoop Hai, Jham Se Bikhar. Now, Jham is not a word normally used in Hindi. Jham is the word used in Pahadi.
It means?
It means with a lot of, you know, flair, the light spread, the sunshine spread. So, and chum is a sound, which is chum chum chum, is onomatopoeia.
Right.
You know, jhum is another kind of expression which comes from the dialect. So I feel...
and people usually pronounce it chum.
Yeah, people pronounce it chum because Hindi has chum, Hindi doesn't have jham. I use jham because I felt it's apt. And those are the influences you have, and I let these influences influence me. Right. So my language is a mix of a lot of things. I've lived in Rampur and Lucknow, for example, spent some childhood days, and that lot of influence of Urdu.
Okay.
So that Urdu also got into me. So I think it's very, very, very fluid in that sense.
Yeah. You know, I heard Javed Akhtar at one of the sessions in the literary festival talking about a loss of standards. He talked about कि वो तहज़ीब नहीं. When he was talking about old cinema, that when you look at even the stories, you look at the songs, and some of them, he mentioned a movie called Tower House, which was a pretty abysmal B-grade movie. But even there, he said, you get very beautiful songs, you get beautiful dialogues, and he talked about a loss of standards. But then, I mean, if you look at the songs that you're crafting, you're using modernity, you're using English sparingly, but you know, with sensitivity, not sort of a blindfold sort of use of English. So would you say things are not that bad?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's bad. See what has happened.
I mean, when you look at the golden age, 50s, 60s, and you look at today.
See, what has happened is, what we need to understand is that a society was very siloed.
When you say siloed, what does that mean?
Siloed means we were brought up, you know, most of us in a middle class India, was brought up in a very protected environment. Our language was a language and we did not know there is anything else which exists. So the language you spoke with each other, and you thought that's the language. Parallelly, in a society, there are a lot of people who did not have access to cinema. They were not the target audience. Their language was not consequential.
You mean dialects, like
dialects,
Pahadi or
rural people, semi-urban people, supposedly poor people.
Right.
Those people were
so
not...
class comes in.
The class came in.
Yes.
So the middle class had a certain language. Middle class had a certain code of conduct. Our films were following that.
And that was nice. We liked that.
We liked that because all of us spoke that. All of us were comfortable with that.
Right.
But what happened when the market opens up? And I think there is a huge change our country has gone through. Empowerment for everyone has come in. In that, the target audience has broadened.
Okay.
Now, a lot of things which you felt, see, it's also the mistake. I mean, people talk about a lot of classical musicians, and I talk to, and they're all of my good friends. They say that classical music sunna kam ho gaya hai. People are not listening to classical music. They don't appreciate it. We have to only, for example, they say in khayal we have to only sing the drut or the chota khayal. And किसी के पास अलाप का वक्त नहीं है और बड़ा ख्याल कोई सुनता ही नहीं है. All those things are true. The fact is, when classical music was growing, it was very, very confined. A few people in a room were enjoying it and growing together, and they were becoming connoisseurs of it, and they were, sort of participating in that.
But tell me,
but suddenly you are expecting the whole world,
yes,
whom you kept away
out of
this, you never exposed them to that, and now you're thinking that they will suddenly start appreciating the nuances of classical music. It is not possible. It is democratization of art which is happening in our country right now. In that, there is a fight to still keep, what we learned, how we embellished our language, the kind of words we included, the kind of metaphors we started using. I think there is something.
Give me an example. Like, what would you never have used in the 60s or the 70s, or even,
Even H2SO4. Even this kind of language you wouldn't have used.
But today we've used Aati Kya Khandala.
You wouldn't have done that.
We wouldn't have done that. But there's also a vulgarization of language.
But that's a different thing.
Which comes with democratization. When you're elitist and nice, there is something to be said for elitism.
Yes.
There is something to be said for it. It's a master speaking to a connoisseur. See, both are appreciating each other.
See, what we need to understand is the question of sensibilities. Now, what you're calling vulgar, some people might not be finding that vulgar.
Exactly, yes. Okay. No, like I remember in the 80s there was a song called
See, and I'm not justifying, yeah. I'm saying whenever something like that happened, or Choli ke piche kya happened.
Well, but Sarkai Lo Khatiya was even one step sort of, because Choli ke piche she said dil hai.
Yeah.
So we sort of said,
we knew that there is a double meaning there.
Yes.
And that on Trande that was very, very it's not only that that Bollywood has, of Hindi films have used it. It's part of even Amir Khusro's creations, where he has written these 4 lines where you find the meaning is something else, and he misleads you into something else.
Okay.
This has been a style of writing, age-old style of writing. So it's not that it suddenly came out of thin air. It has been part of our culture. All I'm saying is, a lot of things have been part of our culture. A lot of different kinds of languages have been part of our culture. The challenge today is to direct all of us towards what is good for us. For example, when we talk about objectification of women, we talk about misrepresentation of women, we talk about stereotyping of women. I think even if it has come from culture, even if it has come from society, even if it has come from our mythology or anywhere, we need to question that. We need a society which questions it and says, well, is this good for us? Is it creating us a better world for us or not? If it is not creating a better world for us, if it is not aesthetically good.
This you're referring to the comment you made in your session
about
Krishna.
I'm making a general comment.
Being an Eve teaser, for instance, or the
I'm
gopis being unhappy with his attentions.
I'm saying that in our culture, there is a room for discussion. We should look at our scriptures. You should look at our art. We look at our folk culture, and wherever you find things which are not right, we have to filter them. We have to make sure that we direct ourselves as a society, as a collective consciousness, towards something which is for mutual good. And
to give you, I get what you're saying, but just to give you the example of, say, Krishna and the gopis, where the whole cult of Krishna teasing them and they are supposedly enjoying it, there's a great joyousness that comes from that. And if we do start doing this process that you're saying of filtering and obliterating and so on, and reshaping the myth, reshaping the culture or the mythology around the Krishna and Gopi cult, don't we risk taking that joyousness out of our life, that impulsiveness, that spontaneity?
Definitely. I am saying what you take out of it is very important. See,
I may take joy. The man next to me might take.
That's
this
exactly
gives me
what I'm
license
saying.
to go on a bus and
intent
pull somebody's skirt.
So intent is very important. That's your interpretation. Somebody else's interpretation could be that do I see it with an eye and I feel that. For example, there was a folk song I was talking to you in the morning about, where the girl is actually saying, "Itni zor se mari lat kamadiya todi re." Now she's singing that. Do you think she's happily singing it, or she's expressing pain in that? Now, if as a society we decide there is no pain in it, then I call it an insensitive society.
Okay.
Because if you look at the folk culture, women did not have voice. When they were singing, they could sing a lot of things aloud in the form of songs, which they have expressed, and if you do not see underlying hidden pain in that, then we are talking about a society which is not sensitive. Fine.
But if you democratize, most people are not going to be sensitive to this, to nuance. They won't even know.
But
they won't even realize.
How do you get nuance? A nuanced society, when you discuss, when you dissect it, when you understand what has been said, how it's been said.
What is that then? Should you repress that gali or should you not? Should we all become politically correct?
Yeah. No, you should repress that.
You should. So you feel you should repress it.
Yes. So by your argument, if a male gets angry with you and start beating the hell out of you,
not beating. I'm talking about gali.
What gali is also verbal abuse. So you're saying verbal abuse is fine. Give me any verbal abuse. I'm fine with verbal abuse.
Say I'm driving a car. My car bangs into somebody else.
Nothing gives you a right.
And you let out a gali then.
No.
What is that?
Galis can't be justified, first of all.
Okay.
Any kind of gali. Gali means, what is gali? Again, you can dissect what is a gali. You can shout, you can say, what have you done to me? And,
it's usually about parentage or sisters or mothers, So these are the three things.
So if you see, in India, galis are directed at women. They're not directed at you. And if you know English, if you say English galis, they're directed at you. Okay. I will do this to you. Okay. I will do this to you. In India, the gali is directed at your sister or at your mother, at a woman. So in a sense, the woman is the one which you are assaulting.
Right.
You're saying nothing. The ultimate assault to you is the woman. So woman, as a result, becomes your possession. So that's where it's going to the psyche, where it's coming from. So the genesis of it is that you are considering a woman the biggest assault for that person, and that's the reason you are targeting that woman, not targeting him.
Okay.
That is where we need to understand the nuances of culture and not protect everything which is there in the culture. There could be things in the culture which are not right.
Okay. Do you think that's what probably Javed Akhtar was also referring to when he called it tehzeeb? Not just in language, but also the way films were shot. I mean, in Guide or in...
No, I'm not disagreeing with Javed Saab. I'm saying that what I'm saying, the reason for it, that today we are encountering all kinds of languages coming into the popular culture, is that the base, the target audience is larger, and there is a very different kind of audience also which has emerged. They have a share. The market wants their share of wallet as well.
Absolutely. Gangs of Wasipur, for instance, it's a gritty film. It's got galis, it's got realism.
But it is not made for masses.
But if masses see it, or if it's by chance a sleeper hit or a runaway hit, whatever. I'm just talking about it as an example. There may be others, gritty. Going into the badlands of Bihar or UP or whatever, गालियाँ दे रहे हैं, औरतों को किसी एक तरीके से treat कर रहे हैं, or you show in Prakash Jha's films, for instance, there's always a rural item number, where the woman is completely treated like a nobody, a nothing. She's just a cheese, and she's sort of doing something, and then something else is happening here. She's not even being paid attention to. Her only job is to jiggle a bit and go away. So, my point is that those are the kind of, say, realistic films you would have never seen in the 50s and 60s, where Wahida Rehman will come wrapped in a sari,
that's what I'm saying.
Say beautiful things, talk in a certain, her hair will be done in a certain way.
I know what your question is. See, that's where intent comes. See, if the intent is that I'm portraying a reality and your camera angles are not there, there to titillate
Yes.
or to say that I am focusing on only this person. See, when you reduce a person to just anatomy and focus on those parts, then I call your intention is not portrayal of a reality, is something else. When your
Same
intention
with the
is
गाली नहीं, वो गाली भी तो देगा.
what?
Gangs of वासीपुर में या गंगा जल में गालियां भी तो बकेगा वो.
Galiyan bakega, that is the portrayal of the reality. It is not saying the galis are right. It's not being glorified. See, that's where tone and manner comes. I mean, I come from advertising, in where most of the time we talk about tone and manner. Everything has a tone and manner. What is a tone and manner? It is trying to emphasize and make it fashionable. When I wrote Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola, the campaign, where Amir comes and says all sorts of things, Yara the Tashan. Every line of that campaign was a line which people remembered. They wrote it on their tractors, they wrote in their Panch. When he said Panch became famous, everybody used to say Panch, like that. So when you emphasize, it's a depiction, it's how you portray it. Then it becomes fashionable. Are you trying to make it fashionable? Or it's part of the portrayal. When it is a part of a portrayal, it does not register like that. It's a depiction of it. And everything is in the depiction,
Okay, tell me, in the cinema that we have today, which is a mix, there's some wonderful multiplex cinema, there's some mass cinema, there's Dabang, there's Three Idiots, there's all kinds of cinema available. There's a choice we have as a viewer. This so-called real India, say a Bombay wala like, we heard this on a discussion, a session the other day, like Farhan Akhtar may not know this real India so-called. He has an urban Bandra-centric India or a Bombay-centric India, which is his upbringing, or his characters are upper class people, they more comfortable in English, they dress in a certain way, they have certain lifestyle. So is there some kind of a small town ethic that say writers like you would bring in, which you would say, okay, this is the real India? Or how do you sort of look at that?
Nothing is real India. I mean, everything is real. I can bring in my reality. Somebody else
will
bring his
heartland hai, wo nahi hai.
What is heartland? Now, see, by 2030, 70% of India's population is going to be urban. What is heartland? Is urban India going to be the heartland? Or is the rural India which is the heartland? It is, see, it's constantly evolving society. It's a living, breathing organism. It is not static.
Okay.
So if it is not that, that part, if I have portrayed that part, that's called heartland. What is the heartland? Now urban India is as much as heartland of this country as rural India is.
You also talk about migration in many of your songs.
Yeah.
Tell us about a song where you are depicting this, the feeling of a migrant who goes from the gaon and...
I'll tell you, there is a song which the film did not, I don't think did see the light of the day, but there was a song, I hope I can find it. Actually, when you hear it, it's beautiful. Bhoole jhoole yaad aaye, beete din bhi sataye, गूंजे किसी की हंसी, कानों में मेरे कोई ढूंढ लाए, कोई तो बताए कहाँ है मेरा कारवां. मेरी छत के ठीक ऊपर था मेरा एक आसमां, रास्ते पहचानते थे मेरे कदमों के निशान. भूले नहीं अपना जहाँ, सौंधी सौंधी माटी और घर आंगना. आँखों में ये तिनका नहीं छलका कोई लम्हा यहाँ, आँखों में ये तिनका नहीं छलका कोई लम्हा यहाँ. मेरा बस चलता तो झोली भर के मौसम ले आता, थोड़ी धूप चुरा लाता मैं गाँव की खुशबू लाता. भूले नहीं अपना जहाँ, सौंधी सौंधी माटी और घर आंगना. आँखों में ये तिनका नहीं छलका कोई लम्हा यहाँ.
Lovely. So this great movement that you're talking about to the cities.
Yes.
By 2030, 70% of India will be in the cities.
Exactly.
What does this migration do to this culture to this tradition? There's a break, there's a cut.
No, there is a confluence. I always
Okay.
see, as I said, it's a living, breathing organism. It's like it's ever-flowing river, where another stream comes and mixes, matches, and it becomes larger. I think all these cultures interact with each other.
Okay.
These cultures, subcultures, languages, they all meet. You know, a lot of the Maharashtrian words today are very much part of the Hindi language, which like what lag gayi.
And you used kholi.
Yeah, kholi.
Kholi.
I've used kholi in a two sense. I remember a line. Good, you reminded me of it. I'm thankful to you for reminding me, because I thought nobody noticed it. Because I written kholi aankhon ki kholi maine pai apni boli. Now kholi, open, like a verb. Aankhon ki kholi, noun. Kholi aankhon ki kholi maine pai apni boli. Mujh mein hi rehti thi meri hamjoli re. That is Man Ke Manjeere, which I wrote years back. So yes, so these words come and they meet, and a different kind of language comes out. So I think that's inevitable. We should celebrate that, and we should direct it in a direction where there could be, see, there are certain things which somebody was talking about Homo sapiens existence, why Homo sapien existed, became successful, and why Neanderthals died, why Neanderthals finished. And I think there was a very nice analysis which I read once, where it's said that Homo sapiens is the first time when this collaborated, when they shared. They did not reinvent the wheel. So if there were Homo sapiens in different parts of the planet, they shared with each other, they interacted with each other, so that what I have learned, you can take it forward from there. You know, even if you see the documentary and that book, Guns, Jumps and Steel, you see the same thing happening. Why, you know, certain races progressed and certain left behind. So it's a sharing, and it is a confluence. It's a meeting of cultures, which makes cultures richer and better.
So, for instance, when you wrote all the songs for Delhi 6, Sasural Genda Phool, you talk about it in the book. You talk about how you changed around.
Yes, there was existing song there. It was in the Chhattisgarhi language, and Raghuveer Yadav used to sing it. And I felt that, you know, retaining the flavor, I should make some changes in this, and to make it palatable or maybe understandable rather than palatable, understandable to audience which speaks language Hindi more, you know. And hence I made it Sasural Genda Phool. And it became sort of a hit song, and people loved it. Though I did not have any authenticity to change, because I've used like bushat pahine khaige. A bushat is a very different word coming from a very different kind of.
But that is the small town ethic that I'm talking about.
Yeah, because
here's a woman whose husband, I mean, a bush shirt would be completely unfashionable in Delhi or Bombay.
Yes,
you know.
But you know, I used it. I found it funny. I found it, you know. It's a texture of the word. I found it probably it belongs to a dialect and might be used. So without checking anything, I just did it, because I write in a language which is a confluence of many languages, as I said, and I use that.
A lot of Hindi filmmakers, especially the genre of Karan Johar or filmmakers like him, the overseas market is the main market. There is a whole genre of films that is just set overseas. They live abroad. Everything is abroad, but they act as Indians, and their family is Indian and their culture and everything. But they just live in New York, London, or whatever. Is that affecting a national narrative? For instance, there is a narrative. If you look at Bollywood or history of Hindi cinema, there is socialism. Then there is also the feudal, the Thakur guy. Then there is smuggling, the angry young man, etc., etc., the terrorism. So it's a reflective thing of what's happening in the country.
Yeah,
now it seems to have.
But sometimes it could be a suspended reality as well. When we listen to fairy tales, when you look at mythological stories, when you listen to folk tales, you listen to them as stories, as narratives, as stories. Or when you look at a film coming from France or coming from Italy, look at Fellini's work, and you look at those things, you might not be able to relate to them as people who every day live that life, but you see them as stories and a piece of entertainment or piece of art. So that's also possible, that one part of the country sees another part of the country's film as a piece of art, not always how do I relate to everything which is being portrayed in this film. Yeah, the purpose is the message. I think in today's world, people are very widely traveled. There are so many channels which do so many travel programs. People are quite aware of the realities of various countries and living in other countries also. We're not living in media dark age where there is nothing known about what is Egypt like. What is Istanbul like, or what is US like. People can understand the difference today.
So it's a broad stream, everything is welcome.
Stream there, and by no means like Gandhi is a film made by someone who was not an Indian, but it does not make it less of a film, or it's about an Indian hero.
But, okay, tell me, to you, what does nationalism mean to you? If you have to write a song, which you have written, there are iconic songs you've written on nationalism. Where does that creative seed start from?
It starts from the feeling of love. I've not only written. I've written.
Tell us a line or two, for instance.
For example, Satyamev Jayate. When I wrote Satyamev Jayate song, जुनून है तेरे इश्क का जुनून है, तेरा इश्क रग रग दौड़ता है तो बावरा सा खून है, सत्यमेव जयते सत्यमेव जयते। मुझे खुद को भी है टटोलना, कहीं है कमी तो है बोलना, कहीं दाग हैं तो छिपाएं क्यों, हम सच से नजरें हटाएं क्यों। That's a different kind of nationalism. It's a love for my country कि मुझे खुद को भी है टटोलना, कहीं है कमी तो है बोलना। So those are also important. See, this nationalism does not mean only eulogy. It also means and true love for the country, which I feel Satyamev Jayate I have written, is that I am ready to introspect, and that's exactly what I'm saying about our culture also. We should be ready
and the
to
physicality. What about the physicality of the country?
Like मेरे देश की धरती सोना उगले. Lots been written about it. That's eulogy of your country. Of course, you love your country.
Not just eulogy, but feel or sense.
That's fine. I mean, you do that. But for me, it's more important to be constructive towards the country. In Rang De Basanti, we're trying to say you often ask what your country does for you. How many times you ask what have you done for your country? So then that's the reason, that the feeling that I need to change this country. I need to do something in this country. I would not be a fence sitter any longer. हुई सुबह मैं जल गया, सूरज को मैं निगल गया, रूबरू रोशनी. So that is what we need to, that's a kind of nationalism.
But also थोड़ी सी धूल
मेरी मिट्टी की
मेरे वतन की,
थोड़ी सी खुशबू बौराई सी मस्त पवन की, थोड़ी सी धौंकने वाली धक 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 सांसें, जिनमें हो जुनू जुनू वो बूंदे लाग लहू की.
And I read you wrote it. Sorry.
ये सब तो हिला लिला ले, सब तो मिला मिला ले.
हाँ.
एक रंग तो खिला खिला ले, और मोहे तो रंग दे बसंती, यारा मोहे तो रंग दे बसंती.
That I heard you conceptualized it as a recipe.
As a recipe. धीमी आंच पे तू जरा इश्क चढ़ा.
हाँ.
थोड़े झरने हिला, थोड़ी नदी मिला, थोड़ा छिड़क छिड़क, थोड़ा हिला हिला, फिर एक रंग तो खिला खिला. It's like a recipe. धीमी आंच पे चढ़ाइए, ये करिए. So I wrote it like a recipe of a color. How will you make a color? So there are various ways of expressing your love for your country. My thing is that how constructively you can do something for your country. Your country really requires introspection. Really requires. We're going through a huge change. A lot of investments are coming into a country. The country, we are seeing a huge divide between haves and have-nots. We are seeing a lot of things, issues which are for the first time coming, the tribal issues, Naxalites, a lot of issues coming at the same time, and we need to deal with all of those issues. We need a happy country. We do not need a lopsided progress in our country. We need a country where we all can live and be happy. I don't want to look out of the window and see most of the people begging, and I don't want to see that. I want to see a country where if I'm getting something, a share of it, we are not ready to share. We need to share in our country.
Okay, one last question. You've written a lot about love. Okay, I went through the book and there are lots of songs about love. I mean, there's Mother Love, that lovely song Ma.
Tare Zameen Par.
Tare Zameen Par. There's Sensual Love from, I think, that movie with Rani and Saif. There is Intense Love, Rehna Tu, Hai Jaisa Tu. Have you ever written a sexy song as opposed to sensual? I mean, it's just sexy.
No, I have written a song called Lazy Lamhe, which is very sensual. I somehow write in the boundaries of love. I'm more a romantic rather than I have not written erotic number in that sense.
Would that be a challenge? Would you be ready to write that? Somebody asked you to do it?
I would if, you know, I think there is a lot of Sanskrit poetry which inspires me. And recently read Amaru Shatakam, the 8th century poetry, where a collection of poetry there. And I found some of the descriptions really beautiful. So I think that's a challenge.
So erotica is a challenge.
Erotica is a challenge, and without breaking, without degrading woman, if you can praise, or not only woman, or a man, or love, definitely physical love to be portrayed beautifully, artistically is a challenge.
Prasoon Joshi, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.